In today's session, we are going to discuss an application for magnetic effect of electric current. That application is in terms of concept called as cyclotron. Now, what is this cyclotron? Okay, let's understand this. Say, for example, if I want to accelerate a negatively charged particle like an electron, it's very easy for us to do that. Just maintain potential difference and you will see the electron is accelerated and the current flows through the system. It's very easy to accelerate a negatively charged particle, but when it comes to accelerating positively charged particles, we'll have to work out some arrangements for that. Now, where do we use this accelerated positively charged particles? Obviously, to disintegrate the nucleus. So when I'm talking about cyclotron is one of such devices. Okay, here you can see the device which is used to accelerate positively charged particles. Now, which positively charged particles? Protons, deuterons, alpha particles, invented by Lorentz and Livingston. Okay. Now, and let's understand the principle on which a cyclotron will work basically. So it works on the principle that a positively charged particle can be accelerated with alternating fields by making them cross over the electric field, and then that electric field should be in the vicinity of the strong magnetic field. So we are making two fields, okay, electric field as well as magnetic field interact with each other, so that the positively charged particle will get accelerated. Now here one needs to understand the role of the electric field. The electric field will ensure, because of the alternating nature of this electric field, or alternating current we also call it, it will help us accelerate the positively charged particle. But then when it has to be accelerated, it has to move in circular fields. Okay, so strong magnetic field will ensure that the positively charged particle will move in circles, and then after moving in circles, how it helps us in accelerating these positively charged particles, we are going to study it subsequently. Now, how a cyclotron looks like, okay, let's understand this. So basically, this is an image of a cyclotron, you can see. In terms of diagram, okay, you can have a look at it. But before I show you the diagram, please make a note of the statements first, because at times the diagrams would overlap the statements. Okay, hopefully you have noted down the statement, and let's have a look at the photograph about how a cyclotron would look like. Okay, in terms of diagram, you can have a look at the diagram over here on the left hand side corner. You can see there are two Ds. Okay, we call them as D. What are Ds? So semicircular metallic chambers basically. So when we talk about Ds, they are semicircular metallic chambers. And have a look at it. All right. So here you can see uh, two semicircular metallic chambers being placed in form of a diagram. This is a diagram. This is the actual photograph of a cyclotron. All right. So it's a huge thing. But then let's understand it in form of this diagram, so it becomes easier for us to understand. So two semicircular metallic chambers, you can have a look at it. And there is a gap between the two semicircular metallic chambers. This entire assembly is placed under the effect of strong magnetic field. You can have a look at it. Now, when I say the positively charged particle, so it's injected here at the center in the gap, you can see. All right, so that positively charged particle either can be a proton, deuteron, alpha particle. Why? Because we want this particle to get accelerated, and it should gain such an acceleration that it disintegrates the target. And obviously, we all know the target is the nucleus of an atom. All right, friends. Now, how the working is, we would be talking about it. Please make a note of this. Okay, friends. So the basics which would work for cyclotron is the Lorentz force, the magnetic component of Lorentz force. So we know how the direction of the Lorentz force is to be depicted with the help of Fleming's left-hand rule, and we know the values also: Q V cross V bar, or F, the Lorentz force would be BIL sine theta, or it would be L bar cross B bar multiplied by I. All right. So these are the forces. This force would be responsible for the charged particle to move in circular orbits. All right. So let's have a look at it. This is something which we have studied earlier also. So the direction of the force. Now, if you can see, if you put the velocity along positive x, right, magnetic induction along negative y, because inwards, okay, cross means inwards. Cross product of these two, V and B, will give you the direction of J cap. So obviously, direction of the force would be somewhat like this. Now the same direction of the force can be estimated, at different points. So here you can see the direction of force comes along the radius towards the center. Same thing is being repeated at this point also. Now, how do you get the direction of forces? Just now I have explained you with the help of Fleming's left hand rule. So you can see what type of motion is being created out of, when a positively charged particle is moving in magnetic field. So it's obvious it's a circular motion being created. Now, when a circular motion is created, basically, all the concepts related to circular motion or uniform circular motion will be applicable over here. And that's why you can see, obviously, one important point over here, the work done during circular motion will be zero. Why? Because the direction of force and the displacement, they are perpendicular. So Fs cos theta, so cos 90 is zero. So obviously, work energy theorem states the work done will be zero. Correspondingly, the change in kinetic energy is also zero. Apart from that, if I equate this force equal to centripetal force, friends, then we can, derive some basic things. You can see. So force being equated to centripetal force, mv square by r equal to qvb. With the help of this equation, you can estimate what the value for the radius would be. Similarly, when I talk about the time period will be, 2 pi r divided by v, okay, whatever that v would be. So correspondingly, you can get this equation. Once you get the equation for time period, you get the equation for frequency. Frequency will be qb by 2 pi m. We all know what m stands for. What q is the charge, m is the mass, b is the magnetic induction of the magnetic field. Correspondingly, you can work out omega also. Here you can see if this magnetic field vanishes. All right, friends. The magnetic field vanishes, the force will also vanish. And then instead of a circular motion, it would be, the particle would fly off tangentially like this. So that establishes the role of magnetic field in cyclotron. So that magnetic field, because it is being perpendicular always to the motion of the charged particle, that's a positive charge, this magnetic field will ensure that the charged particle moves in circle. Please make a note of it, friends. Here also in this diagram, you can see the cyclotron is being represented. Okay. So magnetic field is ensuring that the particle moves in circle. Okay. So these are the two Ds, okay, semicircular metallic chambers. They are connected to alternating currents, okay. So alternating current means what? Say if D1 is positive, D2 is negative, and alternatingly D1 will become negative and subsequently D2 will become positive. Now what effect it creates on this charge, okay. So I'm going to give you the points on working also, friends. But before that, I'm making the theory very clear to you people in simple words. So far as the notes are concerned, yeah, I'll be presenting you the notes also on this cyclotron. Let's have a understanding regarding how it works, okay. So here, when I place the positively charged particle, initially you can see, say for example, uh, D1 is positive and D2 is negative. So this positively charged particle will be repelled by D1 because D1 is positive. So it will throw this positively charged particle towards D2 and D2 will attract it. Why? Because D2 is negatively charged. So obviously opposite charges attract. So therefore you can find this particle jumping into D2 first. Now the moment it enters D2, friends, you can see it starts moving in circular path. All right. So it reaches the periphery over here of the gap. And the moment it reaches the periphery of the gap over here, which is depicted by the arrow, shown by the arrow over here, the polarities reverse. Polarities reverse means D1 now becomes negative and D2 will become positive. Now, the moment the particle is here and D1 becomes negative and D2 becomes positive, this particle is thrown in the gap with acceleration, and obviously it is attracted by some force from D1, and therefore the particles after jumping the gap will enter D1, obviously under the action of some force, the force which I was talking about. Okay, and this force will ensure that the particle gets accelerated a bit. All right, then again when it enters D1 over here, the magnetic field will ensure that it moves in circle, and again it reaches the periphery. Now, the moment it reaches the periphery, the polarities again reverse. So you can see now D2 becomes negative and D1 becomes positive. So therefore, again the particle from this point will jump the gap and enter D2. And this thing keeps on happening continuously till a spiral motion is being observed. Now, continuously in this process, you can see the radius keeps on increasing. And the moment radius keeps on increasing, obviously we know the acceleration is v square by r, or r omega square in that case. Okay, just because angular velocity will be constant in that case. So directly proportional to r. So r increases, what happens is the acceleration also increases. So by the time it covers many cycles like this, it becomes a highly accelerated particle which is ready to hit the target through the exit port like this. Now when it moves out of the exit port, obviously it's going to hit the target, and the target is the nucleus, and then it disintegrates the nucleus. And correspondingly, what would be the time of change and what would be the radius. So this is something which is being shown on the screen. You want to derive this formulas basically for frequency, radius, and time period for cyclotron, friends. Hopefully the concept and the working of cyclotron is clear to you. Yeah, for notes you can see the same thing which I was talking about, here at the center. Obviously we are talking about the construction. So these are connected to AC source of high frequency, which will provide high frequency electric field across the gap. Just now I have explained you how this electric field will ensure how the polarities reverse timely and the charge particle is accelerated. You can have a look at it. This entire arrangement is being placed between under the effect of strong magnets basically. Please make a note of it before I proceed further. Okay, hopefully you have noted this down, friends. Let's have a look at this working. Basically, it will work on two facts. Electric field, I already told you, electric field is used to accelerate the charged particle, positively charged particle, whereas magnetic field will ensure that the positively charged particle will perform circular motion. Where the source produces a positively charged particle. Now, where is it introduced? I have already told you that it will be introduced in the gap or the space. Then the next point of discussion here you can see D1 and D2, right, friends? They become positive and negative alternately. This is being discussed. Okay, we are just mentioning it in form of notes. So one thing to be remembered, when D1 is positive, D2 will be negative, and subsequently vice versa. And you can see always the charged particle would be accelerated towards D2 then in that case later on. Let's have a look at this point also. What the magnetic field is doing, because it is acting at right angles, it will ensure the circular path inside D2. Please make a note of it, friends, before I show you the other points regarding the working of a cyclotron. Okay, I believe you have noted this down, friends. Let's proceed further then. This is the diagram which you can talk about. Here you can see at the center you introduce the positively charged particle. It follows the spiral as per our discussion, and the radius keeps on increasing. Correspondingly, when it comes out, it hits the target over here. You can see it will be a highly accelerated particle, the charged particle. Okay, I believe you have noted down this diagram as well. Let's proceed further. So again, what happens after completing one semicircular path in D2? The polarity is reverse. When polarity is reverse, again I told you how D2 will repel the charged particle and D1 will attract, and correspondingly the same process happens in D1 now. So this keeps on happening subsequently. All right, and you can see every time the particle enters the gap, the polarities of the D's are reversed. So that's why the acceleration keeps on increasing with increasing speeds, right? So when it emerges from the cyclotron through that window, its speed is very large. It will possess high energy, and obviously it's ready to hit the target with high acceleration. Please make a note of these points before we proceed further. Okay, I believe you have noted this down. So then we have some certain derivations to be derived, okay, for this entire process. Let's move ahead with that. Okay, not in syllabus, but then it is included now. Okay, so this was for the earlier cases. So don't focus on this part. Okay, not in syllabus. It's all there in syllabus. So due to the perpendicular magnetic field, the charged particle will move in the circular path of radius r. So obviously, for circular motion, we know centripetal force is necessary, and here this necessary centripetal force is provided by magnetic force. Now, which magnetic force? The Lorentz force, basically. So then we can equate centripetal force as mv square by r equal to qvb, where m stands for the mass of the particle, positively charged particle, v is the velocity with which it is moving, r is the radius of the circular path, q is the charge on the particle, v again is the velocity with which it is moving, and b is the magnetic induction of the magnetic field under the influence of which the charged particle is moving. And when you shuffle this, okay, here you can see one V will get cancelled, and MV by R equal to QB then in that case. So ultimately I can put R into QB equal to MV, which gives me the equation for the radius of the circular path which this particle follows, and that radius will be given by MV by QB. So you can have a look at it. Radius will depend on the mass and velocity, inversely proportional to the charge and the magnetic induction. Please make a note of this, friends. Yeah, so this is the first step, okay, where we have established the equation for the radius of the circular path, semicircular path, you can see. Yeah, where you can see R, you know what all R, M, V, and Q stands for. So in this equation also you can see the radius will increase with the velocity. Velocity increases, the radius increases. Or in other words, you can also understand it in this manner, that the radius is increasing and it is an indication that the velocity increases. Right. So velocity increases means it will experience some acceleration. Let's talk about the time period, okay, for the particle to move along the semicircular path. It won't depend on the speed. So the time taken will be, you can see, distance divided by speed. It will depend on the speed basically. Okay, so we will talk about it. It's not dependent is wrong. It will depend on the speed basically. That correction. So how? So by the formula, time is distance divided by speed. But then you can put this as pi r, not 2 pi r, because it's a semicircular path divided by v. So before I substitute the value for V, here you can see we will substitute the value for R in terms of V, and that will nullify the value of V, I believe. And then that's why they say it's not dependent on the speed. Let's have a look at that equation. Quickly make a note of it before we proceed further. Okay, I believe you have noted this down. So let's put the value of R over here. When I put the value of R as mv by qb, here you can see the V factor gets cancelled out. And therefore, the statement was made over here, not dependent on speed. Okay, make that correction in our understanding. Okay, it's not dependent on speed. Why? Because this derivation explains it. So finally, then you can see the equation for the time period is pi m by qb. That means it will depend on mass, charge, and magnetic induction. So you can see the time taken does not depend on the speed is being made clear from this equation. Please make a note of this. So after deriving the equation for time period, reciprocal of time period will be the frequency. Alright friends, please make a note of it.